Good day, my wonderful people. You're welcome back to the channel. This is Uglo Fashion. So today, this is what we are learning. A double gathered gown. This is the first gathered and this second gathered, and with button down. You can see the button that flows in between. So if you are new here, please subscribe to the channel, and if you're a returning subscriber, I'm very much grateful. So, and if you enjoy this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up, please share with your friends, and if you have any question at all, please let's meet in the comment section. Thank you very much.
Good day, my wonderful people. So today we are learning how to make a double layered gathered gown, and I've gone ahead to draft the basic bodice pattern on this fabric. The half length is 17 and I added half for seam. The fabric is already on fold and the length of the nipple point is 11, under bust is 15, and the shoulder is 17 divided by 2. Then from the shoulder I measured 7 inches as usual. From the 7 inches I measured 4.5. I measured half here. Then at this angle I measured 1. Then I connected everything together. So the circumference of the bust is divided by 4. Then I added 2 inches to it. Every other part also is divided by 4, and I added allowance of 2 inches. So the circumference I have at the bust, I extended it to the shoulder. Then I added 1 inch for the slope. You can see the slant I have there. So I connected everything and I cut it out. So that serves as the back body. So now I place the back on the remaining fabric to cut the front bodies. So for the front bodies I added 1.5 inch. That's because there's going to be button there, and I'm using the 1.5 inch for the button hole. Then at this edge I measured 1 inch to make the armhole slope, to make the shoulder slope rather. Then for the neckline I measured 2.5. That's because the neck is not wide, it's not wide at all. So I'm connecting the 1 inch to the neckline. Then at this point I'll come down with 1 inch. So I'll connect it to the neckline just to give me this curve shape. If you notice I'm cutting both front bodies and back bodies together, I will still reshape the neckline of the front later. So I will separate, I will notch the middle of the back bodies, then draw my darts out. So for the darts, the circumference of the bust span is 8 inches divided by 2 will give me 4.5. So will give me 4 inches. Then I've chalked the 4 inches. I'll measure half on both sides of the 4 inches. Then I'll connect it back to the nipple point in a triangular form. You can see the way I'm doing it. Then after this I will notch it. Then I'll separate the front from the back. So for the neckline of the front, I'll come down with 3 inches. You know I used 1 before, so now I'm making use of 3 inches for the front bodies. Then reshape it to the neck, to the 2.5 inches, which means for the front I use 2.5 by 3. So I'll notch the buttonhole allowance. Then I'll rule this out again. You know I just use my front bodies to cut the back bodies, but for me to determine where the dart is going to be, I need to retrace back the lines. Then measure half just the way I did for the front. and connect it back to the nipple point. So for the buttonhole side, I'll measure 1/4 inch, then iron it with my hemming gum. I'll put my hemming gum under it, then I'll place this aside. So for the first layer of the gathered, I'll measure, for the second layer of the gathered, I'll measure the circumference of the half length by 3 inches. Then for the first layer of the gathered, I'll measure the circumference of the half length by 2.5. I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying. The first layer, that's the one that I attach to the half length directly. So that one is 37.5, which is the half length times 2.5. Then the length is the half length where the gathered ended, that's on 33. So that's close to the nail length. So the 33 minus the half length is 17 inches. So that's 33 minus 17. Then I added 1 inch. That's because I'm connecting half to the upper bodice, then half to the second gathered. I don't know whether you understand what I'm trying to explain there. Then for the last gathered, which is the second step, I multiply the half length by 3. Then the length of the gown is 48, so I said 48 minus 33, which is the close to the nail length. So now after that, I measure the sleeve. The circumference of the armhole is 20 inches, so I multiply the circumference of the armhole by 2 because they're still gathered at the sleeve, and the length of the sleeve is 5 inches. I use 5 inches, though it's 4. Then I added 1 inch because I'm still going to fold it. So now I'm going around to get the circumference of the sleeve, which is 40 inches. The total circumference I need here now is 40 inches. You can see I folded the fabric into 4 because it's going to be a full circle flay. Then from that point, I said I needed 5 inches for the length, so that's the 5 inches I'm trying to sketch out. Now go ahead and cut the flay. I folded this fabric into 4. That's how I was able to get this circle. You can see I've notched the middle. So I cut the other side of the sleeve. Then this is the belt. I just doubled the half length circumference, which is 37.5 times 2. Then I'll go ahead and stitch. So I said I'm going to hem 1/4 inch. That's what I've done here. Then I iron the remaining allowance for the buttonhole. So I'll go ahead and stitch it with my machine, which I've done. Then I will stitch the darts also. After the dart, I've done the dart of the back as well, so I'll go ahead and stitch the shoulder together. That's the shoulder of the front and the back bodies. Then also stitch out the measurements of my client. Then after that, I will measure the circumference of the neckline. The circumference there is 16 inches. So I'll go ahead and measure 17 inches. I'll add allowance to it. The 1 inch allowance is for folding before starting my stitch at the neckline. Then I'll fold it this way. You can see the way I did it. That's because I want to pipe the neckline. So I'll place the neckline in between. You can see the way I folded it. That's the 1 inch I added as allowance. So I'll go ahead and stitch everything together. Then after that, you can see how neat it is. I'll measure the circumference I have there. If it is exactly the circumference of the half length, then I will notch the middle of the back. So for the garter, the first step, I said is multiplied by 2.5. So I just ran a stitch on it. Then I'll go ahead and pull the thread. So you can make your stitches like 2, 3, but I can still work with this one. So I'll separate the thread and pull it. So after that, I hem 1/4 inch also at the edge. Then I ironed 1.25 as well, so as to align with the upper bodice. So I'm going to stitch the two together now. So you can see the way I'm folding it. Then I'm going to stitch to the half length. That's what I'm doing now. So you can see the 1 inch there. So I'll go ahead and stitch the second garter. The second one is multiplied by 3. And I've ironed 1/4 inch as well with my hemming gum. So in this case, I will not fold it. I will ensure the two align. You can see I'm not folding anything. The 1 inch I've ironed it, but I do not fold it now. So it's after stitching the two together that I will now fold. Then I will stitch it down. I stopped at the half length before, so I'm going to stitch everything together now. I've stitched the 1 inch. So for the armhole, I placed the sides on each other. Then I remeasured the 7 inches, the usual 7 inches. That's because I've reshaped the shoulder. I've stitched the measurements out, so the allowance has reduced. So I need to reshape it. the armhole circumference have reduced. Then for the sleeve, I've stitched the down part of it. So I'm going to connect it to the shoulder. So before I do that, I'm just going to fold my shoulder in, because I don't want the sleeve dragging the main bodice of the gown. So for the hem of the sleeve, you can decide to weave it. Instead of stitching it the way I did, you can weave it. Then I'll go ahead, there's gathered here, but I just decided to use my free hand instead of pulling thread there. So, but this is more stressful than pulling, so I still prefer the pulling aspect of it instead of using my hand. So the notched part, I'll use my pin to secure it with the shoulder. So after pinning it down, I'll still go ahead and gather it with my free hand. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do, and if you have any question, please put it in the comment section. I'll be waiting right there for you. Please like and share this video. So I'll still gather the remaining. Now I'm done. So this is the belt, and I'll go ahead and stitch it together. So I use 4.5 by the length of the length of the circumference of the half length. So thank you very much for watching this video to the end. Stay blessed. So I'll just go ahead and pull some thread out at the middle just to turn the belt. Thank you very much and stay blessed.